I started even before the company established in India. Oh. There was no Toonz, there was nothing. I have no idea about animation. And but I went and and then the rest is history. In front of every animator, there is a mirror. Oh. Okay? He gets a storyboard in which the character is crying. He will cry in front of the mirror. So, an animator needs to be an actor. Oh. The telephone industry, right? The telephone industry. It took around 75 years to get 75 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Right? 75 years to get 75. ChatGPT got 75 million subscribers in 3 weeks.
Now it's 2026. When people want to find something, a product, a service, or even a local business, they don't search Google anymore. They ask AI engines like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Perplexity. Instead of keywords, they ask questions. Suggest a reliable brand for baby products. Which is the best restaurant in Kochi right now? What's a good budget phone under 20,000 rupees? AI doesn't show links. It gives direct answers and recommendations. That changes everything. Earlier, businesses optimized for search rankings. Now, they need to be visible inside AI answers. And that's where FSEO comes in. FSEO helps any business, brands, agencies, SaaS, or local stores get discovered on ChatGPT and other LMs. Because in the AI era, if you're not part of the answer, you don't exist. Check out FSEO.ai. Now back to the video. Hi all, welcome to KPH Podcast. In നമ്മുടെ ഗസ്റ്റ് 26 ഇയേഴ്സ് ആയിട്ട് ക്രിയേറ്റീവ് എക്കണോമി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ AVGC ഡൊമെയിനിൽ വർക്ക് ചെയ്ത ടൂൺസ് മീഡിയ ഗ്രൂപ്പിൻ്റെ ഫൗണ്ടറാണ് ജയകുമാർ ആണ് നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ഉള്ളത്. ഈ ഒരു പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് എനിക്ക് ഒരു ഭയങ്കര എന്താ പറയുക പുതിയൊരു നോളജ് ആയിരിക്കും. കാരണം കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇന്ത്യയിൽ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ, ഈവൻ കേരള ടു വേൾഡ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ അത് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്ത കമ്പനിയാണ് 1999. ഓ മൈ ഗോഡ്, ഞാൻ ജനിച്ച് 4 വയസ്സുള്ള സമയത്ത് തുടങ്ങിയ കമ്പനിയാണ്. ബട്ട് ഇറ്റ്സ് ലൈക്ക് എ ലോങ് ടൈം. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് ഈ പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റിൽ കവർ ചെയ്യാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന കുറേ പോയിന്റ്സ്, ഇപ്പോൾ തെന്നാലി രാമൻ, ഹനുമാൻ, പല കാർട്ടൂൺ നെറ്റ്വർക്കുകൾ പല ഇതും നമ്മൾ കണ്ടു വളർന്നത് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്തത് കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്നാണ് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഇറ്റ്സ് എ വെരി ഗുഡ് ഇൻസ്പിറേഷൻ. പിന്നെ നെറ്റ്ഫ്ലിക്സ്, ഹോട്ട്സ്റ്റാർ, എന്താ വാർണർ ബ്രദേഴ്സ്, വിധത്തിലുള്ള എല്ലാ സ്റ്റുഡിയോസായിട്ട് ഒരു വർക്ക് ചെയ്ത് പറയുന്നത്. ഏതൊക്കെ സ്റ്റുഡിയോസായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്?
ടൂൺസ് ഓവർ എ പീരീഡ് ഓഫ് ടൈം ലോകത്തിലെ ഫോർച്യൂൺ 100 എൻ്റർടൈൻമെൻറ്റ് കമ്പനികളും എല്ലാമായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. 5 അമേരിക്കൻ സ്റ്റുഡിയോ ആയിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. യൂണിവേഴ്സൽ സ്റ്റുഡിയോ, ഡിസ്നി, പാരമൗണ്ട് പിക്ചേഴ്സ്, സോണി, ഫോക്സ് സ്റ്റുഡിയോസ്, പിന്നെ മിനി സ്റ്റുഡിയോസ്, ലയൺസ് ഗേറ്റ്, അവിടുത്തൊക്കെ വർക്ക് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. യൂറോപ്പിൽ BBC, ഫ്രാൻസ് ടെലിവിഷൻ, റായ് TV ഇറ്റലി, പിന്നെ ടെലിവിഷൻ എസ്പാനിയോള. സോ ഓൾ ദ മേജർ ടെലിവിഷൻ ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ഇൻ യൂറോപ്പ് ആൻഡ് US. So in the world there are around 10-11 countries which are very key to our business. In all these countries, all the key marquee customers we work with.
Wow, അത് കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്ത് ദാറ്റ്സ് എ ഹ്യൂജ് തിങ്. വെൽക്കം ടു KPH പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് ആൻഡ് വെൽക്കം ജയകുമാർ ടു KPH പോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ്. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ ജയകുമാറിൻ്റെ ഒരു കറണ്ട് ഒരു ജേർണി പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, സിംപ്ലിഫൈ ചെയ്ത് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ എന്തായിരിക്കും?
ഞാൻ ഈ ഇൻഡസ്ട്രിയിൽ വന്നത് വളരെ യാദൃച്ഛികമായിട്ടാണ്. എൻ്റെ ഒരു ബാക്ക്ഗ്രൗണ്ട് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഫിനാൻസാണ്. ഐ എം എ ഫിനാൻസ് പ്രൊഫഷണൽ. ഐ കംപ്ലീറ്റഡ് മൈ ചാർട്ടേഡ് അക്കൗണ്ടൻസി ആൻഡ് ദെൻ ഐ വാസ് വർക്കിംഗ് ഇൻ കേരള വാട്ടർ അതോറിറ്റി ആസ് എ ഫിനാൻസ് ഓഫീസർ. ദാറ്റ് വാസ് മൈ journey. And very accidentally, I met a gentleman. His name is Mr. Menon. He's from Cochin. Mr. Menon was working for a Swiss-based family, Indian family, based in Switzerland. And Mr. Menon was basically doing electronic businesses for the family. He is a visionary. He was a visionary. He passed away. He was a visionary. He created around 19 companies for the family in the electronic side. He was with IBM in India earlier, and then he basically left India. And then he went to Singapore and joined the family, started electronics businesses at the age of 52.
Wow.
Okay, he left and joined the family. When he died 20 years later at 72, he was chairman of 19 companies for the family.
Wow.
And 4 or 5 companies were billion-dollar companies.
Damn.
Right?
Billion. Wow.
More than billion-dollar companies. Even in Kerala, Mr. Menon established 2 companies.
Oh, ഏതൊക്കെയാണ്?
One company is UST Global.
Oh my God.
So that is the first unicorn of Kerala.
Yes.
Right? That's a billion-dollar company. And second company is Toonz. So it was actually originally, it was Menon's idea. Menon is not from animation. But Menon was, he is an idea man. He was living in US at that time. He was reading a Los Angeles Times newspaper. He read an article stating that animation works are more and more outsourced from US to Asian countries. That was the article.
Yeah.
So then suddenly the entrepreneur in him thought that that's a great idea.
Yes.
Okay, so that is where it started. And then he identified a gentleman from Disney, an American named Bill Dennis. So he approached Bill Dennis and said, I have an idea. I wanted to start an animation company anywhere in Asia, because the family who funded Mr. Menon, they were operating at around 120 countries. So they're quite large group. Steel, aluminium, they're quite large group. And so Mr. Menon has been given a mandate to go anywhere in Southeast Asia and select a place and start a studio. But Mr. Menon, being a Keralite, and he has a vested interest. He wanted to do something for the state and for the country. And around at that particular point in time, Technopark was established in Trivandrum.
ട്രിവാൻഡ്രത്തിൽ ഫസ്റ്റ്
This was India's first
Yes.
electronics technology park.
അതെ.
Yeah. Indian IT story ഒക്കെ നമ്മൾ പിന്നീട് it all shifted to Bangalore and Hyderabad and all that, but it all started in Kerala.
Yes.
And Mr. Menon was very impressed with Technopark facilities. Right? It was very state of the art. And then he said, and one more thing is that for Toonz, Kerala has always been known for artistic capabilities. Okay? ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഏത് ആർട്ടിസ്റ്റിക് പൊസിഷൻസ് നാഷണൽ ലെവലിൽ എടുത്തു കഴിഞ്ഞാലും പാഡ് ഏജൻസികളായാലും ഒക്കെ തന്നെ അതിൻ്റെയൊക്കെ തലപ്പത്തിരിക്കുന്ന മലയാളികളാണ്. അപ്പോൾ മലയാളികൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ബംഗാളികൾ, അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ചെറിയ ചില ഇന്ത്യയിലെ പോക്കറ്റുകളിലാണ് ഈ ക്രിയേറ്റിവിറ്റി കുറച്ചുകൂടെ കൂടുതലായിട്ട് കോൺസെൻട്രേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. കൾച്ചറലി Kerala is very known for artistic capability. So then, when we really decided about where, we need to establish the studio, the answer was very clear. One is you need talent. So that is Kerala. And then Technopark was a great, kind of a facility for us to house the studio. So that is how we finally decided on to Kerala. That is how I started even before the company established in India.
Okay.
So Mr. Menon was found, he already identified a CEO, the gentleman Bill Dennis from Disney, and they were looking for a finance guy.
Okay.
So I was working in the government. So there was an advertisement in the Hindu paper. There's an American company starting an animation studio in India. They're looking for a head of finance role. So I went and applied, because at that point in time, I was very young, and being exposed to chartered accountancy and all that, I really wanted to get out of the government system. I was quite bored, because in government you have your limitations, right? So I wanted to get out of the system, and that is the time I met with Mr. Menon. There was no Toonz, there was nothing. I just, and it was 2 years after my marriage. Right? 31. Yeah. So that is the time I met Mr. Menon, but I was seriously impressed by his philosophy, his thoughts and all that. It was just because there was nothing else for today it is easy, right? Toonz is known, there is a facility, you can go and see that. There is nothing. There is absolutely nothing. So just a man coming and telling his vision about that, and inviting me to be part of that vision. But I kind of believed in him. despite huge pressures from the families.
Yeah.
My family was okay because my parents were not that very educated, so they really didn't know what I'm really doing. But my wife's family was not very happy
Oh.
because leaving a
Government
very
job.
comfortable and secured government job and getting into a company which is not even existent, right? At that particular point in time, it was a huge risk.
This was in 1990.
98, 99, that time.
Yeah.
But I took a decision to go ahead. But, I was not sure about the outcome of that business because I have no idea. I have no idea about animation. As I told you, I came from finance. And my first job is also as a CFO. And but I went and and then the rest is history. In 2001, after 2 years, Mr. Menon passed away.
Oh.
He had unfortunately he passed away in a flight from Singapore to US. He had a heart attack. And at that particular point in time, the family which funded Toonz basically came and asked me to take over the mantle from the American CEO. So they wanted me to be the CEO of the company. This was in 2001. So last 25 years, I've been 2 years as a CFO and 25 years as a CEO.
Wow. And recently...
That's the journey.
Yeah,
And now I just resigned and in November 2025. So 3 months I am in the process of putting together my new journey.
യെസ് നെക്സ്റ്റ് കമ്പനി അത് നമുക്ക് കൂടുതൽ ചോദിച്ചറിയാം. ഒബ്വിയസ്ലി എനിക്ക് ആ ഒരു മേ ബി 90s to 2000 ആ ഒരു കാലഘട്ടത്തിലുള്ള ഒരു ജേർണി പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും? മീൻ ടാലൻറ്റ് വാസ് ദർ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നോ? ഈവൻ തെന്നാലി രാമൻ ഉണ്ടാക്കിയ ജേർണി കുറേ വാട്ട് വാസ് ദാറ്റ് ഇൻഡസ്ട്രി ലൈക്ക്?
Correct. There was no industry. There was absolutely no industry. Toonz was one of the oldest studios which basically started in India in terms of scale and size as a serious business. The real problem was talent. Okay, the raw talent was available, as I told you earlier. India, in Kerala especially, creative talent is available, but raw talent. But for animation is a very skilled, kind of a sector. So you need skilled talent. That was not available. So what we have done is, and thanks to the family which supported Toonz, because it was a very costly affair. Luckily, we got our first client, a Cartoon Network, Hong Kong.
Oh, Cartoon Network.
Yeah, first client. And they have given us a work. And we started, we started executing the work. Then we realized that the people we hired, and those days, 80% of the people were from other states.
Okay.
Mostly people from Bombay. They were all coming here and sitting at the studio in Trivandrum. Only 20% from Kerala.
Oh.
80% of the people from other states. But these people don't have a international exposure to the production value. So then we very soon realized that there is a serious issue with regard to the talent and the skill available. So we decided that, because the family's vision for Toonz was to become a world-class studio. It is not a Kerala studio or an Indian studio and all else. And all of their ventures are very global in nature, like UST. It's all very global in nature. They wanted to be, their vision was very clear. We wanted to really build, we are starting from Kerala, but we're a global studio. We wanted to become a global studio. But in order to do that, you need to produce quality content to the people, right?
Yeah.
To the customers. So in order to produce quality content, you need quality talent.
Yes.
Right? So what we have done is very difficult because there is no other trainers even to select from India. So we brought in around 75 people from foreign countries.
Oh.
75 people. So if anybody who walked in to Toonz those days, they will see this as an international company.
മലയാളീസ് പോലും ഉണ്ടാവില്ല.
വളരെ കുറവാണ്. And all the senior management team were all foreigners.
Wow.
So we have a large number of people from Philippines, because Philippines those days was one of the very thriving country in the field of animation, especially in the 2D animation side. So we brought in a lot of people from Philippines, people from Canada, people from Australia, people from Korea, people from Singapore, people from London.
Wow.
It's a very multicultural team, kind of we put it together, and then we put them as in all key positions. So for 2 years, initial 2 years, until I took over as a CEO, I was the only Indian in the management team.
Wow.
The entire management team were foreigners.
And they were in Trivandrum.
In Trivandrum, yes. And the business model was outsourcing, right? So we were supposed to do foreign work.
Yeah.
And it was financially very challenging at that particular point in time, because, all of these people are in dollar salaries, right? You won't get them for small money.
Yeah.
So they were all in foreign funding. And then, the outsourcing, the very basic model of outsourcing is that Indian costs are lower.
Yeah.
So you get work at a lower cost, execute it here, you get the margin. That is the model. Yeah. But how do you get a cost arbitrage if you're paying dollar salaries?
Yeah.
Right? So 2-3 years, I think we spend money. I think initial 2-3 years, we probably spend around $20 million US, right? In training.
Oh my.
In training the people. So that really
paid off, I think.
Today, if I reflect back, one of the best strategies we have done, not just for Toonz, even for the industry in the country, is that particular thing about bringing in top class talent.
Yeah.
Give the local talent that exposure was one of the best strategy we have adopted, and it was fantastic. And then all the talent basically spread across the country, and many of the people who came from Bombay and all gone back, and they started their own studios.
Wow.
They were also part of other studios and all. But then what happened is in 2001 and 2002, when I started taking over and all that, animation suddenly become widely perceived as a sunrise industry.
Sunrise industry,
as a new industry, as a potential new industry. And there's a lot of article in the press, and suddenly investors started chasing this industry. This created a big problem for Toonz, because the only place where experienced talent available is Toonz. So suddenly Toonz became a perfect poaching ground for other studios, because any other studio who wanted to set up a shop, where do they get talent?
Toonz.
There's only place here is at Toonz. So we started feeling the pinch. Okay. And as I told you earlier, only 20% of local people at that time. 80% were from Bombay and many other states. So those people who are in the north, if somebody is starting a studio in Bombay, they will simply go, because that's easier for them. It is near their home. It is their home either. So we got into so then we decided that until then we were training all of our people for free. There was no, we bring in all those people. So that and then we actually provide stipend to our kind of trainees. But then we realized that talent, especially when it comes to that level, talent will just leave. They don't kind of stay. So that is the time we decided, and this is the industry big scenario, because the studio started mushrooming, but there is no talent. The supply demand gap was quite huge. So, and that is the time I took over. So I decided that I wanted to capitalize on that opportunity. So I started an academy.
Toonz Academy.
That is the time we started an academy. Otherwise, we were doing training, but not as a separate name. We were just doing training as part of our day-to-day job. But here we established an academy, and then we started charging for the people. And that was also another, I would say, for an industry which was not non-existent and growing even today. I think that was another decision which we have taken, which really worked in our favor about the academy. Fundamentally, what happened is in a growing industry, and the industry has been growing at 16-17% year on year for the last 25 years, every year, except for 1 or 2 years. The industry has been growing significantly. And where the talent is not available is a problem, big problem, right? And then what will happen is, people, the talent cost become very high. So that time, what really helped us is that our academy, because we train around 200-300 students a year. And then we probably will have around 50 people requirement. And then we won the ability to get the cream of the people to our own purpose, right? That was one of the great things. Second thing is that the balanced people, they are available for the industry. So the industry also, kind of work. But the students are kind of given free opportunity whether to join us or to go anywhere. There's no this thing. Once if you join us, then you need to stay with us for 2 years because there is still additional on the job training needed to do that. But I think that one did very, very well. And later academy also, in 2004 West Bengal government, then Chief Minister Buddhadev Bhattacharya called me and said and Calcutta was also a very known creative kind of area.
Malayali, Bengali.
Yeah. Very, 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 very big. Even today, I think animation, Calcutta is one of the biggest hubs. So he said, why don't you come and set up a training? We will give you all the facility. So government has given all the facility. They will buy computers. They will do everything. But just set up a training facility. This was in 2004. He inaugurated the facility. So we were there for 5 years. And these 5 years, so we developed an academy there called Toonz Webel Academy. Webel is West Bengal Electronics Development Corporation. It's similar to Keltron, right? So Webel was managing the show, the administration part, the training part and all will be done by us. That academy also, I brought in a dean from Ireland and teachers from a couple of other countries. So truly international, kind of a training program. And we were giving around 350 students. For 5 years, I think, we probably around 1,700 students we trained. 96% was the placement track record, right? All of these, because industry was booming, people needed. So this is the only place where you get, again, quality training.
Yes.
So these people all got, kind of thing. So it was actually a really, really, so we, at those days, there was no animation courses in universities and there's no other. There are private players, but most of them were doing software training rather than any key animation training. Animation is not software. Animation is basic creativity. Okay, what is an animator? How do you define an animator?
Something that moves.
Yeah. So animator basically, yes. So he basically make movements to objects, movement to characters and all that, right? But it is not just a movement, right? You see in the screen a character crying, right? So when you really go and see a film, if you really needed to enjoy the film, you need to be immersive. You need to have a resonance with the emotions of the character there, correct?
Yeah.
So it is not simply doing some nonsense, right? If you come to any animation studio, Toonz, in front of every animator there is a mirror. Okay, so if you wanted to, and he gets a storyboard in which the character is crying, he will cry in front of the mirror, right? He will cry, so that he will see his own face crying in the mirror, and then that emotion is what he basically put it into the drawing. Okay. So an animator need to be an actor.
Interesting. I never
right?
thought about
Yes, animator need to be an actor. Animator need to be known about the timing. When to act, what to act, right? So if somebody really doing something, your action also need to have a specific timing, correct?
Yeah.
So an animator need to be a very good actor, right? In our training programs, many other training institutes, those days they were just simply doing a Adobe After Effects training or any other software training. We didn't allow the people to even touch computers for 3 months. We put them into acting classes. we took them to kind of places and we do the illustrations. We take them to beaches. We take them to museum. We take them to bus stand. Ask them to observe people. No two people are not walking the same. So only if you observe very, 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 clearly, then you understand.
Yes.
Right? Because two people, if you really take 3 people and then you really look at how they walk, each of them have a different walk cycle.
Yes.
So unless you observe all this and unless you are yourself is an actor, and so that those kinds of basic creativity is required to become an animator.
Interesting.
Okay. So the tools change. Today AI, you don't need many of them, but the fundamentals are the same.
Yeah.
Storytelling skills is the same. So if you don't have the storytelling skill, nobody will watch the film, however high quality your film is.
Makes sense.
Right? People are going to watch Pixar film not to see the artistry and the quality of the Pixar film. It is about the story.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was actually a big difference between our training program and the training program of the other competitors. So that is how the training also started.
What about the revenue? Like, what did the revenue apart from the academy came from?
So initial days, as I told you, the vision was to become a world-class studio where we could do global projects from Kerala, from India.
Yes.
And those days, the biggest challenge was, talent was one of the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Second challenge was, India was not known in the animation business at all.
Oh, Mappile.
No. Japan was known, Taiwan was known, Philippines was known, Korea was known, but India was not known.
Oh.
So how do you even market India first? Forget about the company.
Yeah.
And Trivandrum. Nobody knows Trivandrum.
Yeah.
What is Trivandrum? Where is Trivandrum? The global market doesn't know about, they never heard about Trivandrum as a hub for animation. No. So marketing Trivandrum itself. So for that, what we have done is that, when we inaugurated the studio, we started an event. That was actually the first animation event in the country called Animation Masters. Week with the Masters. That was the first name, Week with the Masters. So what we did is we brought in the who is who in the animation business in the world.
Oh.
We brought them to Trivandrum.
Oh.
Right? So we brought in very, very top level, kind of people. I mean, so many, the director of Lion King, the director of Star Wars, Rob Coleman.
Oh.
So a lot of these people whom the animators consider as gods, we brought them to Trivandrum. And 7 days they were stayed at the studio in Technopark. And we actually opened it for anyone. So not only just our studio, of course studio because we are conducting and the proximity to Technopark, our people got the biggest benefit. But we made it open to all the people. Anybody to come and interact with them. Right?
Yeah.
So those days, a student who wanted to study animation, he has nowhere to go. No trainer, no people, no really top class people to really talk to and then get motivation from. So that is the platform we created. And it was not a business, thing. We financed the whole show. For 25 years, we conducted that event every year. And so this was a platform for the aspiring artist to interact with the who is who in the business, in the creative side, not on the business side. So that actually also, kind of worked. Because the people who came, they have seen the studio, they have interacted with the people, they understood the enthusiasm. They knew that, the talent probably not reached there, but there is a real potential. So they spread the word. So we started, kind of getting the studio. And the revenue was, service work. That was the studio. So when I took over in 2001, I changed a couple of things. One was until then, we were a 2D studio.
Okay.
And those days only 2D was only technology available. But when I took over, that is the time the Toy Story came out from Pixar.
Yes.
Which was the first 3D animation related. The software was very, very early stages. But so I converted a vast majority of our workforce to 3D.
Oh.
And my logic was that, India as a country who is, the IT capital of the world. And by that time, India was started to be known as the IT center for the world.
IT services.
Yeah. So there is a natural affinity for our people to computers and parents also, anything related to computer, okay, my child is okay to go, right? That was there. So so we said, okay, let us move a section of our people to CGI, computer based animation, graphics. So that I changed. Second important thing I changed is I realized that, by doing service work, you'll make some margin. But in our business, the real value will be owning intellectual property rights.
IPs.
Yeah. So can you really start something on your own and then keep that rights with you? So that in animation, one of the interesting thing which you need to know, and which is very different from live action thing, is that shelf life of animation films are very high.
Oh.
So I'll tell you one example. Let's talk about this Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry was created 70 years back.
Wow. അത്രയും പഴക്കമുണ്ടല്ലേ?
Yes. 70 plus years now. Okay? 70 years back. Still minting money.
Yeah.
Right? So because every new generation of kids, it's new. So 2 years later, your kid become 5 or 6 and he started watching cartoons. It's a new story.
ശരിയാ.
And he will enjoy. After 3 years, he will become a parent. His child also, he will see same. Tenali Raman the same. Tenali Raman we created in 2002.
Oh.
Right? This is in 2025. We still sell it as new.
Wow. പുതിയ ഓഡിയൻസ് എപ്പോഴും വന്നുണ്ട്.
Yeah. So once you create that, kind of properties, this become real estate for you. And we don't sell. We license. So I basically give 2 years license to Disney. So after 2 years of running, the rights will come back to me. I can resell it to somebody else. I can resell it to Disney itself.
Oh.
Right? I can relicense it to them. So that is the beauty of animation. It is not like film or live action television series, except for some classic films. Other films you will not watch after 2 years' time.
Yeah.
And the new people will not even understand. If any of your kids, right, watch old Prem Nazir films and all, they will not understand. They will not understand the environment. They will not understand the character. They will not understand what they are talking about, because the world is very different today.
Yes.
But animation is not like that. You take about Lion King, you take about any kind of old animation films. For kids, it's new. It's evergreen stories. Right? So that difference is there. And because of that, you own IP. That means you are basically sitting in a gold mine. So that is another thing I did. So I started, that was again, it was not an easy decision, because that means you need to spend money.
Yeah.
You need to invest money. And animation is not an easy, animation is a costly business.
ഒരു കമ്പാരിസൺ പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ
I'll tell you. So for a 22-minute television show, if I do it for US and European market, a minimum episode cost would be 2 crore. One episode.
22 മിനിറ്റിന്റെ എപ്പിസോഡിന് 2 കോടി
കൂടുതൽ. That is a cost. If I'm doing it for India, obviously it is very different scale, but it will be still minimum 25 lakhs per episode.
Oh.
Right? And for a live action show of similar nature, even if for Star, you can do it for 5 lakhs.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
എക്സ്പെൻസീവ് ആണല്ലേ?
Yes. So animation is expensive because animation is very labor intensive. Obviously AI are all coming, it will change the scenario, but historically it has been very expensive. So for a 22-minute show, when we were doing 2D animation, what has it been is around 35,000 drawings one need to make for a 22-minute show.
Oh. അത് ഹാൻഡ് ഡ്രോയിങ്.
Those days hand drawn.
Oh.
35,000 drawings for a 22-minute show, right? And then that need to be scanned into computer, painted, colored, composited, all together. It was a very labor-intensive job. So 150 people needed to work for 2-3 months to get a 22-minute show out.
Wow.
So it is costly.
Yeah.
It is time-consuming as well.
ഓക്കെ. അപ്പോൾ നിങ്ങൾ തെന്നാലി രാമൻ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തായിരുന്നു. അന്ന് എത്ര എക്സ്പെൻസ് വന്നു? 2002 ഉണ്ട്.
അന്ന് നേരത്തെ ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ആദ്യത്തെ ടെലിവിഷൻ സീരീസാണ് തെനാലി രാമൻ. ഇന്ത്യൻ തീം വെച്ചിട്ടുള്ള ആദ്യത്തെ ടെലിവിഷൻ സീരീസ് ആണ് തെനാലി രാമൻ. അപ്പം നമുക്കറിയില്ല, നമുക്ക് ഇന്ത്യ എന്ന് പറയുന്നതിനകത്ത് നമുക്കൊരു പാഷൻ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. നമ്മൾ ഇന്ത്യയിൽ നിന്നാണല്ലോ, ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഒരു കമ്പനിയാണല്ലോ. അപ്പോൾ ഇന്ത്യക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ഒരു IP ചെയ്യണം. ആദ്യം നമുക്ക് അങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യാം. മാത്രമല്ല വേറൊരു പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. കാര്യം ഞാൻ IP-യിലേക്ക് പോകണം എന്നൊരു സ്ട്രാറ്റജിക് ഡിസിഷൻ എടുത്തെങ്കിലും എങ്ങനെ ചെയ്യണം എന്നുള്ളതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് അപ്പോഴും നമുക്ക് കൺഫ്യൂഷനാണ്. കാരണം വേൾഡിൽ ചെന്നിട്ട് നമ്മൾ IP ചെയ്യാം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അവർ നമ്മളെ വിശ്വസിക്കത്തില്ല. ഓക്കെ, നിങ്ങൾ ഒരു IP-യും ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല, ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഒരു IP-യും ചെയ്തിട്ടില്ല. അങ്ങനെയുള്ള ഒരു കമ്പനി വന്നിട്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ അമേരിക്കയ്ക്ക് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് IP ചെയ്തു തരാമെന്ന് പറയാൻ പറ്റില്ലല്ലോ. സോ അതും കൂടെ കൊണ്ടാണ് നമ്മളൊരു ഇന്ത്യയിൽ നിന്നുള്ളൊരു സ്റ്റോറി നമുക്ക് എടുക്കാം. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ നമ്മുടെ ക്രിയേറ്റീവ് ഗ്രൂപ്പിൽ ഉയർന്ന ഒരു തീരുമാനത്തിനനുസരിച്ചിട്ടാണ് തെനാലി രാമൻ ഒരു ഇന്ത്യൻ ഫോക്ലോറാണ്, സൗത്ത് ഇന്ത്യനുമാണ്, ആന്ധ്ര ആ ഭാഗത്തുള്ള ഒരു സ്റ്റോറിയാണ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് അത് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തത്. അപ്പം നമുക്ക് ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് അറിയില്ല, കോസ്റ്റ് എത്രയെന്ന് അറിയില്ല, ഇത് പിന്നെ എത്രമാത്രം പൈസ നമുക്ക് തിരിച്ചു കിട്ടുമെന്നറിയില്ല. ബട്ട് വി വെഞ്ചോർഡ് ഇൻ ടു ഇറ്റ് ബിക്കോസ് ദിസ് ഇസ് our strategy was not creating a Tenali Raman. Our strategy was venturing into IP business.
Yes.
So Tenali Raman was our first project. That was the way we did it. We spent around 6 crores those days. And we launched it in Cartoon Network. It was a super duper success.
Yes.
Because until then, nobody has seen any Indian story in and this is also another important thing, because media and television creates soft powers in nations. For example, you look at our younger people, right? You see we are not wearing Indian dresses. We are eating pizzas, burgers and this and that and all that, right? Where did this came from? None of the people have ever visited America, right? Vast majority. I'm sure that there are a small minority might have visited, they are fortunate to visit these places. But where did this culture come from? This culture, there's a big thing called culture invasion, right? This culture invasion happens very slowly, quietly, through television, through media. So that is the reason why many big countries like Canada, America, Europe, they all heavily subsidize media and film.
Whoa.
Because that, it impacts your lifestyle. It can sell commerce, it can sell your food, it can sell your, kind of anything. It can sell tourism in a big way.
Wow.
So that is the reason why this film and TV is considered as a sector which creates soft power for a country.
For a country. Wow.
Yes. So many countries as a result, especially children, because we are dealing with kids films, they in many countries they have reservation. What they call it as any animation content you show to our kids. For example, Canada, okay, they have a reservation is 65%. What does that mean? Is if you really watch Canadian kids channel, 65% of the content should be Canadian.
Canadian context.
Canadian content.
Content.
Means Canadian producers need to be producing content based on Canadian settings.
Oh.
What does that mean? Is, for example, let us look at this from a socio-economic and socio-political, economical, kind of angle. We all wanted our children to be exposed to Indian stories.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we wanted them to know Mahabharata, Ramayana, whatever our local stories, right? Local stories, our Kadamatta Katha, whatever we our folklores, Vadakan Veeragatha, this and all that, right? But as I told you, when I taken over in 2001, only American stories are told to Indian kids.
Okay.
So what kind of ethos, what kind of stories you are telling your kids?
So we didn't have a reservation on that.
No, even now we don't have a reservation. Even now we don't have a reservation, right? But many countries have that because they realized earlier that by basically, kind of giving too much exposure to foreign content and zero exposure to local content, it is not good. Because kids are glued to cartoons.
Yeah.
We all know that they will watch 6-7 hours.
Yes.
In the past, maybe now it is reduced because they have so many other opportunities. But the reality is the same. So if you really, in the formative years, if you really don't expose them to your local ideas, local stories, local things, it's you basically are rearing a next generation who is foreign in mind.
Yeah.
Not Indian.
Yeah. I never.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Of course. So there are so many other dimensions to all this what we are doing. So I'm very proud that we started the Indian story, and then we also did Hanuman, which is the first Indian feature film, which we did it with a company called Percept Pictures in Bombay, with Anurag Kashyap. Anurag Kashyap was there at Toonz Studios for 3 months, sitting there and directing the film. It was also one film which, local animated film, made good commercial success as well. This was in 2008 or 2009. So these two are, really speaking, golden, milestones for Indian, kind of animation industry.
Yeah. പിന്നെ 2010 to 2020 ആ ഒരു ഇയേഴ്സിലുള്ള how did the industry evolve? Were there more cartoons Indian centric ആയിട്ടുള്ള അല്ലെങ്കിൽ how that evolved എന്നുള്ള
So the success of Tenali Raman and Hanuman and all this, that created a big boom in the Indian domestic industry. So today, when we started, only Cartoon Network was there.
Yeah.
Today we have 13 national channels for kids.
Oh.
13. And all of them, except for one or two, all of them basically use a significant amount of local content. So, so there's a lot of, you might have heard about Chota Bheem.
Yes.
So many other, kind of Motu Patlu and so many other cartoons, kind of started. But it all started from Tenali Raman. Yes. Today, the domestic business is a big business. And, both in theatrically, you might have heard about very recently a theatrical film called Mahavatar Narasimha.
Netflix,
it came, but it first came in theatrical and it grossed 300 crore in box office. We never heard about that kind of a situation in India for an animated film, kind of grossing that, kind of number. Mahavatar Narasimha basically grossed 300 crore plus in theatrical. So this all, now it is all happening. There is a growing appetite for animated films. That is, kind of definitely happening. Coming back to your question about 2010, we then wanted, until then we were just an Indian studio, right? So I decided that, we wanted to expand.
Yep.
We wanted to basically expand it to other geographies as well. So there are a couple of things we wanted to look at. One was the market access. So even in many of these markets, there is, like I mentioned, there is quota system, right? So like I mentioned, in Canada, there is a quota. Only 65%, only 35% is allowed for foreign.
Yeah.
Then all the other people will be fighting for that 35%, right? So many countries, so many, kind of thing. Similarly, in Europe, similar system is there. They basically, all the broadcasters and Netflix and everyone are mandated to buy 60-70% of the content, local content. Okay, and so then the foreign, so by being in India, we don't have any reservation or anything. And being in India, we are at a receiving end, because then we are fighting with that 30% small, and all countries will fight for that, kind of thing. So we decided we wanted to be in Europe as well. Okay, so that was one, the market access.
So യൂറോപ്പിൽ ക്രിയേറ്റിംഗ് ലോക്കൽ യൂറോപ്യൻ പെർസെൻറ്റേജ് മീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാനുള്ളതാണോ? Can you be there in Europe to make their suggestion? Yeah.
If I start a company in Europe and if I create the story in Europe,
you can be in that system.
I can be there. Okay. I can be there. So initially I was thinking about going to London, Britain, because after America, UK was the second largest market for animation. Talent is again the second biggest talent base after America. And incentive system was very good. But unfortunately, at that particular point in time, Brexit happened. So we decided that, okay, this is a big issue, because if you are in UK, then you will not be able to eligible for any European Union, which is a large, kind of country base. So we will not be able to eligible. So I decided to change my acquisition target to Ireland. Okay. Benefit for Ireland is very closer to UK, English speaking, but also part of EU.
Ireland, okay.
Yeah, Ireland is part of EU. So I basically bought a company there. We acquired a majority stake of a company called Teligale, which is a post-production, full-fledged post-production house. And they also have a very big live action studio. And a 30-year-old, very, very high profile, very highly respected studio in a place called Galway, which is 200 kilometers away from Dublin. So we acquired majority stake in that company. I mean, we have around 350 people working there.
Oh, in Europe?
In Ireland.
Oh.
They're still there. It is very big. Quite successful. That actually helped us in a very big way. So suddenly you are seen, the world has seen as in a very different light, because you're not just an Indian studio anymore. You are a global player.
Yep.
Right. So that was one. So that also gave us an opportunity. So we had a pre-production facility in Ireland. We have a post-production facility. So suddenly we are a full-service studio. So production happens in Trivandrum. Pre-production and post-production happens in Ireland. And then any project you do in Ireland, government will give you 40% money back.
Oh.
So you spend $1, government will give you 40 cents.
Yeah, nice.
So that is a financial assistance as well. So suddenly our projects also become more economical.
Yes.
Right? In the whole time, as I told you, from 2002, when I started taking over as a CEO, we started investing in projects. So that means we have ownership in the project. But we didn't have distribution capabilities.
Yeah.
We were using third-party, big-time distributors. We were using BBC, we were using Paramount Pictures, we were using Universal Studios to distribute our content. But many times we understood that without having our own distribution facility, we are actually giving away too much of money. So distribution fee for TV is around 30%.
Oh, 30%.
30% of the revenue will go to the distribution agent, sales agent, which is a significant amount of money. And many times we also don't get the kind of attention we wanted on our projects. Because you give it to a third party, we have no idea what attention they give to your product. So we wanted to be into the distribution business.
Analytics of how things are.
Not even analytics, even report on time. You have no idea. You are at the mercy of third party people, and many of these large distribution houses, they have their own creative accounting. Even though sales happens, you may not probably able to see any money.
Oh.
So a lot of those kind of things are there.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get into distribution by ourselves rather than starting a distribution company from scratch. I decided to buy a company in Spain.
Okay.
So there was a company in Madrid and Barcelona called Imira Entertainment. This was also another company when I bought. They were having a 15-year history. And it was one of the biggest distribution company in the Spain, Portugal, Latin American region.
Okay.
So all Spanish-speaking region, they were the number one distribution company. And I thought, okay, this is good because at least, they're not a big one in English-speaking, but they're good, but we can build it from there.
Yeah.
So we bought the company 100%.
Oh.
We bought the company 100%, and then we set up our distribution. In addition to whatever they are very strong in their territory, we basically built an additional facility for the entire world.
Oh.
So we had a person in Singapore, we had a person in India, we had a person in London. So we basically built sales agents in many other continents and then become a global distribution company. Not only to distribute our own content, but we also started distributing third-party content.
Different game, Mari.
Yeah. So we were, that is great because, all of our projects we will distribute.
Yeah.
But now we have a setup.
Yeah.
Other people, third parties also, kind of came up, approaching us and asking us whether you will be able to distribute our projects. So we started that as well. So, and then we started our facility in New Zealand and in Turkey and marketing offices in many other countries. So by this time, Toonz has really become a mini studio, right? Like a mini Disney kind of a studio because you have development capabilities. You have production capabilities. Yeah. We were also investing. We were financing capabilities. We also have sales and monetization capabilities. So you have a 360-degree, kind of an operation. So that is what we built, over a period of time. And in between, we also started digital. Right. This happens in 2013.
Oh, okay.
This was at the very early days of YouTube, and I basically understood that this is going to be the future. But at that particular point in time, we didn't have anybody who understood YouTube. So I brought in a guy from Spain, and he was here for around 3 months to work with our people to set up our first YouTube channel called Toonz.
Okay, Chotu.
Right, that was the name. This name all created by him, the Spanish guy. He's a very interesting guy, very creative guy. Weird name, right? He said, "Okay, let's do it."
Channel
Yeah. We have that channel has probably around 12 to 14 million subscribers.
What?
Yes.
Okay, check it out.
Yes. And during its at its peak time, because now the kids' content in YouTube have certain monetization issues, not just for us, for everyone. But until then, we used to get $250,000-$300,000 per month from our YouTube channel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. We in 6 months' time we reached around. Initially, we just set it up, and we didn't pay attention. We were just kind of putting, and then we suddenly see the hockey stick growth, and it suddenly grown to 10 million subscribers, and grown, and we have audience in 200 countries.
Whoa, nice.
Yes. So we built in that digital capability, and then we started several other channels. So we had a big YouTube channel. In 4-5 years back, I basically put all the digital into a new company in Dubai called Toonz Media Networks. So we started TV channels in many countries. So we have a channel in Dubai. We have a channel in Spain. We have Spain and Latin America. We have a channel. We had a channel in Indonesia. We had a channel in Pakistan. So in many places, because we have content. By the time, over a period of time, our library also grown.
Yes.
So we had around 2,000 hours of content in our library. So when you have that level of content, you can basically start a channel, start our own OTT platform called My Toonz. So a lot of those kind of things. And all of these digital activities put together, we started a new venture called Toonz Media Networks. So these are all of our channel businesses, right? Including
Toonz Media.
TMN, based out of Dubai. So it was a separate company. So I think all together, this is what we built over a period of time.
It's a large amount of great work on, I think.
Yes.
20 years, it's like a very, very huge time as well.
Yeah, but yes, I think today probably it will not take, when we really started, nobody to learn.
Yeah.
Everything is, kind of self-learned and trial and error and all that, Today you don't need that because, you have the industry is matured.
Yes.
Very matured, and you have people to ask. And but those days there is nobody to ask, everything is self-learned. There is no talent. Talent need to be created.
Yeah. So mindset is the thing I am very interested to. And out of the opportunity, then you figure it out. Then you solve it. The next opportunity. That mindset, how was it developed in you?
I think, you need to be agile in your mindset, and you need to be very curious. And you need to really understand what is happening on the ground, because if you really look at it, every time this changes, the technology changes, the audience, how production happens changes, how audience consume changes. Everything changes. Look at what the changes. Today's kids, they need instant gratification. We are all hooked on to reels today. Right? We all need instant gratification. We have no patience to look at long format content. So that these kind of patterns are changing every now. So unless you understand these changes and then think how this could impact my business, and then kind of take strategies to address that, you will not survive. I will tell you a very interesting analogy which I heard, which is very interesting in how this technology adoption happens at the scale. The telephone industry, right? The telephone industry, it took around 75 years to get 75 million subscribers.
Yeah.
Right? 75 years to get 75. ChatGPT got 75 million subscribers in 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Right? That is the change in the technology adoption we are talking about. That's the world we are in.
Yes.
So if you really don't understand and if you really don't adopt to technologies, not just technology, but just understand what are the changes and in the trends in happening in our industry, whichever industry you are, and how that is going to impact your business. And the earlier you get into that, kind of level of thinking. In the past, it was the, from 2D to 3D or 3D to game engines and all that. They were at least, for 2D industry was there for 60, 70 years before it became 3D. Right? So that you have a long years to become stable and then figure out. Today, that is not the case. You have no idea what the technology will come tomorrow. So you should be prepared for these kind of changes coming to your business. So there is no certainty today to your business compared to the previous year. Previously, any recession. Generally, people know, okay, it may take another 6 months. 6 months, there may be a problem, but we will bounce back. But today, you can't say.
നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ ട്രാവൽ ചെയ്ത് ഇപ്പോൾ 2019 2020 കൊറോണ ആ ഒരു പീരീഡ് ഓഫ് ടൈം എങ്ങനെയായിരുന്നു ആൻഡ് ലേറ്റർ ഓൺ വാട്ട്?
Again, Corona was a time. It was, nobody know what to do, right? And especially in our business, because our business is a very collaborative business. Because if you do a film of, let us say, 400 scenes, 150 people do, that means one guy will do 2-3 scenes. Another guy will do the next 2-3 scenes. So there need to be a complete collaboration between the people. Otherwise, you will not get a film, a hooked film. You will not get. So when Corona came and the shutdown happens, there was a huge, kind of things. But very quickly, we were able to, kind of get into a remote workflow. And mostly cloud-based, kind of collaboration. So initially, it took probably a couple of weeks for us to get acquainted with that, kind of thing. But it worked. It worked very well. And at that particular point in time, other than the workflow and pipeline, kind of integration, that was the biggest immediate, kind of things to how to make sure that. And another thing happened is because all the kids are also at home at that particular point, and the demand for the content exploded like anything. So you have nobody in the studio, but you still need to deliver, right? Because if you, and not only deliver probably at the earlier time, probably everybody wanted to deliver earlier. Because they all have huge demands of content. So that really posed a interesting challenge, but I think we basically managed it very effectively, and many of the studios also managed, and not just Toonz, but I think the whole industry I think very effectively managed that by remote working and collaboration through cloud and all that, and we passed that. One great opportunity at that particular point in time, like I mentioned, suddenly the demand for content exploded, and that's the time the OTT platforms, all of these, kind of things. So I think that time, I would say, around 4-5 years has been a peak time and a great opportunistic time for any animation companies who is into the business, whether you are a service studio or an IP studio. Whichever studio you are, I think business was fantastic. It also, at that time, we have done a couple of experimentations. We started our own OTT platform called MyToonz. Because we wanted, you can go to YouTube, you can see that, but YouTube is still not a very safe platform for kids. Because it's not just kids content. There's so many other content there. If you really don't monitor, kids can be exposed to very, dangerous content. So our objective is basically to create a safe, curated, and an age-appropriate platform for kids. Right? That was the thing. So MyToonz was the name of the platform. So that we launched at that particular point in time.
How did that go?
It went very well. It went very well. So now we are using that platform in many countries. So that one it went. Then we also launched another platform called Right Brain. Yeah, Right Brain. So again, what happened is our academy suddenly, because the government closed all the academic institutions, right? We can't bring the students. How do you do that? We started remote training and all that, but at the same time, we thought this is actually an opportunity for us to really put our training courses online and do it at a global level. But that particular initiative, unfortunately, didn't, finally didn't really work out very well. I think it is simply because, not because of the problem with the idea, I think it is simply because of the execution issues. We were not, quick enough to really put together all these courses into the thing, and there was also some issues with regard to the technology platform we created. So we had to abandon that later. So some of these experimentations we have done at that particular point in time. So I think, for me, I think, every challenging time actually give you a great opportunity to experiment.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Coming back to maybe last 2-3 years, AI vannittuണ്ടല്ലോ, then there is a industry is going to evolve in a different level. Even you can use students to maybe prompt it and make a scene or something. So where do you think this is all going? I mean, from your industry standpoint of view?
I am an optimist about technology, because technology, if you really look at technology as an enabler, right? If you really look at technology for you to replace you and to do all of your things, I think it doesn't work that way, right? But if you really look at technology as an enabler, it will work. It will work. It will work in a drastically interesting way. But the critical part is the fundamentals. If you don't know the fundamental, right? I'll tell you one simple example, right? You needed to, so in our animation, you needed to do a storyboard. That is a very important part of the pre-production package. That is the way the director tell an artist how I wanted the scenes to be structured. That is the storyboard all about. Today, anybody can do a storyboard using AI, right? You put a prompt, you will get it. But if you don't know the fundamentals, that storyboard has no value. You will get a storyboard. But the storyboard, it is about the storytelling skills, right? Storytelling is, not everybody can tell the story in the same way. Correct? So stories need to be told in a way that is engaging with the other person, engaging with the audience. And a book, it is not like a book or anything, especially for film. It is not one-on-one. I am not reading a book. It is mass viewing, right? So a lot of people who are watching in theater, and it need to engage the masses. Right? So it is a slightly different game. So if you are successful, right, you need to be a great storyteller. You will be able to tell stories to engage the masses. Then it will work. So if you know your craft very well, then this tool is super helpful.
Like fundamentally strong.
Then it's super helpful, right? If a guy who understands the architecture very, very well, he gets a great AI thing, he will get a 10x productivity. If a storyboard artist, he understands the storyboard very well, then, he get an AI tool, you will get magical product, right? But if you basically ask a guy who doesn't know any of these things, he will create a storyboard, but that storyboard, whether it has any value, I don't think so.
Makes sense.
So I think in the overall scheme of things, my feel is like, and I wanted to connect to the older statement I made. Animation is time consuming, animation is expensive. What AI is actually creating is, AI is basically making animation cheaper and making animation less time consuming. Okay? In the past, a Disney movie will take 7 years to produce. 7 years. 7 to 8 years is what any Disney or Pixar movie will take. Today, you don't need that. Right? So think about, you are creating a movie today, which will be released 7 years later. Can you imagine that today?
No.
Because you have no idea what will happen 7 years later, what would be the kid's mindset, what our audience mindset. You have no idea. So we don't know even tomorrow. Right? So in that particular thing, waiting for 7 years and all, it is unimaginable, and it is not practical anymore.
Correct.
Right? So AI, I think that way, it really is bringing in a drastic change, which in my opinion, it is positive if you really look at it in that way.
Yes.
So the studios, what studios should do is they should invest in AI,
Yep.
but it is not, and you should also create ethical processes
Yep.
and policies to make sure that where you use AI, because AI also, you probably heard that in today AI, strictly AI videos are non-monetized in YouTube. There is a US court ruling yesterday saying that you created an AI, you can't copyright it. Right? So you can't use AI blindly. Right? But if you use AI in a very effective way,
Yeah.
it can make wonders because it can create big efficiency.
Yeah.
It can reduce timeline. It can hugely help you. But fundamentals is still the most critical part.
Learn the fundamentals.
Yes.
Okay. Your journey, you have Mr. Menon as a mentor in the early days. How was that? How was he?
He was a fabulous person. I had a father and son relationship with him. He, every day he was living in Beverly Hills at that time, and every night at 9 o'clock our time, there'll be a phone ringing, and the first thing is, "How are you, my son?" Right? So I really enjoyed it. I was really under depression the moment he passed away, and for some time, because you suddenly lost a guy who is, so much part of your, life.
Yeah.
As I told you, my journey first, that, I met him when I joined, and then he was very much part of my mentorship. And one of the interesting thing, which I think it is interesting for people to know, is I basically asked Mr. Menon. Mr. Menon was chairman of 19 companies, as I mentioned. He's a very successful person, financially and otherwise. So I asked him, what do you do with all this, kind of money?
Yeah.
And he told me, and something very profound, but I didn't probably understood the gravity of the answer at that particular point in time. But today I understand. And what he told me is that I wanted to create employment opportunities for people in Kerala. That is what I wanted to do with my money.
Oh.
And then he said, when you create an employment opportunity, you are actually making a social engineering.
Yes.
Right? And so that social engineering is not personal. He said it is generational. Okay?
I'm getting goosebumps.
Yes, it is generational.
Yeah.
So then I didn't quite understood. He explained a little bit. I understood the concept, but I didn't. But then over a period of time, in animation, many of the people, the artists who are coming are from economically downtrodden families, not economically higher families, mostly from artistic, like carpenters, jewelry makers, right? Because they have in their DNA, the craft is there,
Yeah.
the art is there. So 50-60% of our workforce come from that group, social group. But they're economically very backward. But I could see, in 25 years,
Yeah.
have around 50-60 people who have been with us for 25 years.
Yeah.
So I could see the lifestyle changes, and not only the lifestyle changes, the changes in their families, how their parents' lifestyle, and most importantly, their next generation.
Yes.
Right? They have better education, they have better, food, better access, and I think so. This is exactly what Mr. Menon said. When you create employment opportunity, you create a job for a person who is coming from an economically downtrodden family. You're not really making his life better.
Yeah.
You are also making a generational change. That means next generations also make that change. And that today I completely understand what he really
I'm crying.
what he really tells. So
like very
the best
emotional.
way
Yeah.
to do a social change is not to give some money to somebody.
Yeah.
It's actually to create job opportunities for 10 people.
Yes.
Can you pay 10 people's family, 10 families, that is the biggest social change you can create.
Yeah.
So that was one interesting thing. So my second mentor is a gentleman, his name is Mr. Indu Chandaria. He's a head of the investor group from Geneva. So immediately after Menon's death, I have taken over as the CEO. So Mr. Indu invited me to Geneva, where he lived, just to get an understanding. And this is not first time I met him, but several times I met him in the past. But we never had a longer conversation. So this time he wanted to understand me a little better. So serious funding they are doing. So they needed to know who runs the show. So when we were sitting in his palatial house, he told me, Jaya, just wait, I'll come now. And then he went to his cupboard and then opened his suitcase. And then he took a very old paper, a piece of paper, and asked me to read it. So I read it. So it is an agreement between Nippon Steel in Japan, which is one of the oldest steel company and biggest steel companies in the world. Nippon Steel in Japan, and the Chandaria family has also, it's a partnership, kind of a thing. But it's a one-page letter. It simply says that, the Nippon Steel and Chandaria family decided to work together, and we will do a multi-country, kind of a business. And if there is any dispute between us, we will sit across the table and resolve it, blah, 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 right? So if you read it, it's a very simple letter. It is not just one page. And if you read it, it is really nothing. It is simply a philosophical statement. Whether it will go in a court of law and survive, absolutely no. It will not. It is very simple. And he told me, based on this paper, we have been doing business with Nippon Steel for 100 years. 5 generations.
Whoa.
Okay? So the advice he was giving to me, really what is important in business is not company to company. Business is person to person. It is all about relationships. Okay? So what he told me is that, Jaya, please don't go after transactions. You may be very, enthused by a particular transaction to do it. But that transaction, you may make a little money, but that will go away. But you spend your time as a CEO in creating relationships, long-term relationships, and with integrity, with positive, kind of values. What will happen is that then you will develop relationship where business will happen for a long time, because business is never a straight line. Business is always up and down. Right? And no business will go like this all the time. So business is always ups and downs, and any business, even steel business and all, very ups and kind of down. So you will have some downtime. That time, if your partner is very good, you can sit across the table and talk to him and then figure it out together. Right? That is what is this business all about. So he told me at the very early days itself is, please don't, even if it is high profitable opportunity, don't look for transactions. We are not interested in it. We are interested in creating relationship. Thereby we create a long term. See, when you really have a Nippon Steel kind of a relationship for 100 years, how many customers you need? Right? Acquiring a customer is a lot of effort. But once you acquire a customer, you sustain that customer. That can only be possible if you have relationship skills. If you really respect the other party, if you really understand their pain, and then work together and to find a solution. So I think these kinds of, things at the very early days, even though, as I told you, probably I might not have understood the entire piece of it in its gravity, but over a period of time, you will understand what all these pieces means to you personally and to business. So these are all. So I was so lucky to have these kind of mentors in my life. And another person is Mr. G. Jayakumar. He's a founder CEO of Technopark. He's also a guy whom deeply impacted me, many times. A no-nonsense person, whom you can always talk to, and he will always give you advice without any bias, on your face, very straightforward. So I think, so I think as an entrepreneur, I believe my success is due to the network of people, I had, whom I can go and ask some advice and some help. So I think that is really, really an interesting thing, and which I really encourage our younger entrepreneurs to basically develop these networking skills and relationships, and then have one or two mentors, whom they trust. I think this will basically will go a long way.
Yes, 100%. Then 26 years later, you decided to start into Toonz Media Group.
Yes.
Tell us more about that.
Right. So, as you know, 26 years is a very long time.
Yeah, I was
staying in a.
I think I was 28 now. 26, 2 years back.
Yes.
Like,
in one company today is unthinkable. For me, I never felt Toonz as being because we always do new things. So business has never been the same. We always do new things. We have been very curious, and any new trend coming in the world of entertainment, we basically get into that. So it has not been boring, but I think what I thought is two things. One is I thought it's 26 years is good enough time, and I needed to give space for younger leaders to take charge, so that there is an opportunity for them to run the company differently or to the next level. So that was one aspect. And second thing is that part of my job as a CEO is partly strategic but partly operational as well. So I now in my next one, whatever I wanted to do, I wanted to stay away from operations. Day-to-day operations, I'm not interested. My expertise is strategy, right? So I wanted to basically involved in more strategy and less operation. So not too much of a production company and all that, but more nimble and more globally connected, kind of opportunity. So Kinso is not a replica of Toonz. Okay, it is not. So it is my idea. So Kinso has 2-3 pillars.
Okay.
One is consultancy, and second one is what I call it as executive production.
Okay.
That is packaging. And the third one is digital first approach. Okay, so these are the things we do. I will explain. On the consultancy side, even today, many of the Indian studios, and not just India, Middle East, all the emerging economy people have great ideas, they have passion, they have all that, but they really don't know how to go about it, how to select, how to package, content, what kind of talent you need to bring in, what is the monetization opportunity, what kind of distribution deals you need to do. So there is a lot of areas where our entrepreneurs in our sector need support. So I believe I can really bridge that gap because I have tremendous expertise in that particular area, so where I would be able to help them. So that is one. Second one is executive production, like a film or a TV, kind of a project. These are all, an animated film is a $10 million, $15 million project, right? For Disney and all, they spend $180 million. But even for independent films, so anywhere from $10 to $20 million budget is a thing. So it's a lot of money. So when you really put it together, what is really important is to ensure that you put the right talent, you put the right director, you put the right voiceover artist, you put the right music artist. You basically bring in the money, because money raising of $20 million is not an easy thing. Raising money and monetization, bring in the right distribution partner, right? Bring sponsors, right? Bringing in the right consumer products partners. So all of this, you need a requirement of a very specialized person. So I thought of, at least for India and Middle East and many of these emerging countries, I can definitely, kind of help that. And the third one, digital first, is I believe today, and we touched upon this on the creator economy side earlier, today if you have a great idea, you don't need to, you don't need to be at the mercy of a TV channel, or you don't need to be at the mercy of a theatrical producer. I'll tell you a couple of examples. One of my friend, his name is Vinod Chandar. He's in Chennai. He has a music background. His father is a musician in Tamil cinemas. He's a non-musician. And Vinod basically created a song for her 6-year-old daughter, for her birthday or something. And to please her, because he is very closer to her daughter. his daughter. And then he shown it to her and she liked it. And then he put it on YouTube. Okay? Became viral. And that became the #1 kids channel in the world in the YouTube called Choo Choo TV.
Wow.
150, 100, 200 million subscribers.
Oh.
Right? And then he was actually making significant amount of money a month. Right? From that. A guy who is sitting in Chennai.
Yeah.
Just a small, he's a very, he is a good musician idea, but he created that, kind of things. Nursery rhymes is what it is all about, mostly those days. Now he expanded, but he created a significant business out of his passion.
Yes.
Sitting at home. Another example, there is an American kid called Ryan.
Yes.
He's a very small kid. He started his, this, as a passion from his backyard of home, very lower middle class family. It is called toy unboxing. So what he did is he started this. So what he did is he bring in a package, and we all, kids, if you remember, when our father brings a package, we are all very curious what is inside in it, right?
Yes.
Whether it is kids or even adult, we are all very curious what is inside in a box.
Right.
So he just opened it up, and then he take the toy, and then he explained the toy, all together. And that become super successful. Then suddenly, and he started making $1 million a month.
Yes.
$1 million a month from the toy unboxing videos. Suddenly, Disney, Mattel, Hasbro, all toy companies looked at him. My goodness, this guy has tremendous followers. So now they wanted him to unbox their new toys. Right? So suddenly, in addition to the YouTube revenue, he gets sponsorships.
Yes.
So when Disney wanted to unveil a new toy, they will give him $1 million. It is not an issue. And then that guy is now older. He's not a 6-year-old boy. I think it is probably 13, 14. Last year, he started his own new toy venture in Walmart. And in 1 year back, it was the biggest selling toy in US.
Wow.
In Walmart. Right? 300 million toys sold.
Oh.
Okay? So this is a small kid so what I'm saying is that today opportunities are tremendous.
Yes.
Right? So digital is giving you opportunity to actually create commerce. So creator economy is all about, it has 5 C's.
Okay.
One is content. Okay, whatever content you create. Second one is channel. You need a channel.
Yep.
The channel can be a YouTube or a Instagram or a whatever, right?
Yep.
Then you need community.
Yes.
So that is the most important thing. You needed to create the content for the community and to engage the community.
Yes.
Right? And then you collaborate. Then finally you create commerce out of it.
Yes.
So once you have your following, your people, then whatever you tell or whatever you sell, they will buy.
Yes.
Right? So we are currently working with a digital creator, and that digital creator is very, very top end pop singer and an artist in US. And she 5-6 years back, she did a show with Nickelodeon. She sold hair bows. Okay. $3 billion worth of hair bows in retail sales. 3 billion. Right? 3 billion is around 25,000 crore.
Yeah.
Right? That worth of hair bows she sold all over the world.
Yep.
That is the beauty of creator economy. Right? So today I think that opportunity is available. There is no gatekeepers.
Yeah.
If you are smart, you will be able to do it. You can make money.
Correct.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So I think these are the 3 areas I wanted to focus.
Makes sense. പിന്നെ വേറൊരു AVGC എന്തോ സാധനം എക്സാർ അതിനെ പറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ I think Kerala is also promoting that. Where you see that going?
Right. So I think now AVGC XR, that is a term for animation, visual effects, gaming, comics, and AR/VR. So all these smaller sectors together, government coined a term called AVGC XR. Government of India has selected 11 champion sectors for the country to grow in the next 10 years. Right? One is AVGC. Okay, 11 champion sectors: smartphone manufacturing, semiconductors. So there is one of the sector is AVGC sector. Then you understood how much effort government is putting into that particular area. Honorable Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat in the last year, 3 times in his Mann Ki Baat, he basically touched upon this particular industry. He actually coined a term called Create in India.
Create in India.
Yeah, Make in India. Similarly, Create in India. Because he thinks that next level of growth will come from creative businesses.
Yes.
Designs and creative businesses. So Government of India is putting a lot of efforts into focus into this particular industry. And I think that way there is a serious opportunity for younger people to come into the creative businesses. Coming to the Kerala state, Kerala is also one of the earlier states to come up with a policy for AVGC XR community. And so it's a very forward-looking, kind of a policy. So I think between central and state governments, this industry is getting a lot of attention. So this is, in a way, I think, what the message is giving to the youngsters is that the next, wave of growth is going to come from this particular industry. So this is a great opportunity for them to get into this industry right now.
Yes.
That is the message.
That is the message. Next rapid round ആണ്. അപ്പോൾ first question, what are the books that you read and recommend to your viewers?
I think there is quite a bit. I think there is a book called Atomic Habits.
Yes.
Which is quite. There's a lot of books,
Maybe last recent 3 books you have read.
Atomic Habits is one book, I would say, and another one is also a book by Verne Harnish. It's called Scaling Up. That is also a book which I recommend for entrepreneurs, which beautifully describes what are the areas an entrepreneur from a business point of view. Because it talks about people, execution, strategy, and cash, right? So it very beautifully explain, and especially for younger entrepreneurs, they may not be good on everything, right?
Yep.
Nobody is good on everything, right? But it will give you a very clear idea about what are the kind of things you need to be very careful about, in business. And this is for any business, okay? This is not just for our business. And for creative business, there is a very interesting book called Creativity Inc., which is by Ed Catmull, old Google CEO.
Oh.
He was also the CEO of Pixar. Beautiful, beautiful book. You read it, then if anybody is in the creative field, this is probably one of the best books ever written.
Yes, make sure you read it. Okay. Next question. What is currently day in a life look like?
Current day, I'm a little bit relaxed now.
Maybe before that. Maybe when you're running a Toonz.
That was very hectic.
Tell me more about it.
Very hectic. I think, because it's a lot of travel, because Toonz has multiple country operations, large business. So almost 15 days of travel in a month. So to various countries, to within the country and all that. So that has been a very hectic, kind of lifestyle. But generally, those days, I'm a very early morning person. I woke up at around 4 or 4:30 and I go to gym. And 5 o'clock, I go to gym. 6 o'clock, I come back. And I go to the office. I reach office by around 7:30.
7:30 in the morning?
In the morning. Simply because I really don't want to get into traffic or anything. I live in a place called Kavadiyar. From Kavadiyar to Techno Park, in a normal time, it will take 30 to 40 minutes. But in a lower traffic time, it can take 20 minutes.
Okay.
Right? So you reach there. And then always I come back at around 5 o'clock. I come back and then I work from home. Probably from 7 to 10 or something like that. So that is, my life, but mostly work.
Yeah.
And less of other activities because the position demanded that. That is, slightly more balanced right now.
What is currently like?
Yeah, I'm same. I woke up at the same time because that you can't change. Your body clock is attuned to that. Go to the gym and then I work. I basically have 5-6 customers. And now, I'm also doing a lot of things for the family because my son is getting married next month.
Oh.
So as a result, there is a lot of activities related to that. So I would say half work and half family now.
Makes sense.
Now, it will again change after the marriage, obviously, I need to spend more time on to my new business.
Yes. KPH podcast വരുന്ന ഗസ്റ്റിനോട് മാൻഡറ്ററി ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ആണ് ഹെൽത്ത് വെൽത്ത് റിലേഷൻഷിപ്പ്. മേ ബി യു ക്യാൻ ടോക്ക് അബൌട്ട് സ്റ്റാർട്ടിംഗ് വിത്ത് ഹെൽത്ത്, ഹൗ ഹിസ് ഇവോൾവ്ഡ് ഓവർ ദി ഇയേഴ്സ്. മേ ബി പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ.
Yeah. By God's grace, other than the normal, kind of fever and those kind of stuff, I have been healthy. But I was quite concerned during the later part of the Toonz days because it was very hectic and my sleep started getting impacted and all that. And my doctor basically said, you need to really look at your stress levels and control your stress levels. So I think that is there, when you really work in a high pressured, kind of an environment, unless you specifically have a conscious look at your health, that will have a problem. So my recommendation to any entrepreneurs is, and my advice to myself, if I, from an younger days, is definitely spend more time on your family and on your relationship, because entrepreneurship, I think, is a marathon. It is not a sprint.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So health, then wealth. How did you build
Wealth, not a problem, because luckily, thanks to my parents, they came from a very lower middle class family. So the value of savings has always been, there, because there is no other backup, right? So you need to save. So as a result, I started saving, not even because I started taking responsibility of my family at the age of 14.
Oh.
My father had some business which all failed, and so we were struggling. We had some land and all, but but you need cash, right? And I had a sister, she needed to be educated, my education and all that. So I started taking tuitions at the age of 14. Immediately after my 10th standard exam, I started taking tuitions, and thereby helping my family. And then I took my those days I did my BSc in physics, right? And then I went to the chartered accountancy. So all those years I have been working. I have been taking tuitions and helping myself. And after chartered accountancy, I started doing financial consultancy for various. I was lucky because when I joined this article firm, chartered accountancy firm, he was very famous and he had fantastic customers, but he didn't have enough people to really do the job there. So as a result, lot of those kind of accounting job and small consulting, bank project reports and all that, it used to come to me, and it has been a great source of revenue for me. And my boss allowed me to kind of do that. He understood my financial background. But then what I'm saying is, even at that time when I was doing tuitions, I used to save money, right? Small money, but one of the things in savings you need to understand is the impact of compounding.
Yes.
You probably will not be able to see the result of your small investment, but after 5-6 years, you will really see the impact. Unfortunately, this is not something which is taught in our schools, which I think it is probably the first thing which we need to really tell our kids is the need of financial planning in their life. So luckily, I was a very disciplined person in that. So from the day I started making money, I always ensured that 30 to 40% of my earning goes to savings, and so that way I think it is okay. So this thing to our viewers and our young people is that, again, start early. Then when you reach at 40, 45 and all that, you will be financially independent. You will be fantastic.
True.
And you, especially today's, you have a lot of tools like mutual funds and portfolio management services, PMS and all that. You will be able to make money. It is not a difficult thing. You just need to have a disciplined way of saving small monies, even small, every month.
One thing I want to I mean, you have a finance background, about company, you are media group, so you are constantly financing things cash. But how do routine etiquette so that you don't run out of cash? I mean,
that's a planning, right? So we always have a projection. We always have a cash flow, kind of a planning. So we have routine expenditure like manpower cost and your rent and electricity and all their, kind of thing. So you have a very clear idea about, and for Toonz, the benefit is that, later years, because we have a large library of content, that also generated free cash.
Free cash.
Right? Because you are selling the content, the YouTube revenue I talked about, that is around 2-3 crores a month. It is free money.
Yeah.
You have no expenditure at all because you already created your content. It is sitting in your library. You're putting it there and re-entering. So I think, but it will take a little time for you to reach that, kind of a comfort level.
Yeah.
So Toonz, it was okay. And then initial days, our backers were very strong.
Yes.
So they didn't have any.
They had infinite money maybe.
They understood the game and they understood that to build a world class business, you needed to really put a certain amount of kind of money, and they put the money and so, but over a period of time, then Toonz has generated its own kind of revenue and that was enough. And not that this doesn't mean that there is so that we can invest in anything. No. We have always been very careful, and in business, there is always risk, especially in creative business. Nobody can guarantee a success. Even if I bring in Steven Spielberg, that alone doesn't guarantee a success. Of course, he's a top-end guy. But I think, but we always ensure that, we bring in the right story, we bring in the right director, we bring in the right elements, we bring in the right partners. So we ensure that all of that is taken care of. But even after that, there is still an opportunity. But one great thing about this, I think I must say this, in creative businesses, the failure most of the time is not because of their creative capability. The failure is because of the financial discipline. Okay? If you really look at any companies, any creative companies, most of the companies didn't fail because they have a bad creative process. Many companies have a problem because they have a lack of financial discipline. Because generally creative people are very good at their kind of job, very bad at managing their numbers, managing their finances.
Get a CFO as soon as possible.
Absolutely. And so for me, I think because I have that financial mind and I'm not creative that way. And I didn't get involved in creative. I never tell this way to do, that way to do. Creatively, no. We have people, they will do it. I will only get involved if the budget is out of our hand or timeline is out of our hand. So that discipline is helped me a lot. But if you yourself are not financially accustomed, bring in a good CFO on your side, and sometimes even if he say no, then don't do it.
Makes sense. Next, health, wealth, relationship. Talk about the relationship. How your wife, parents.
My wife is Bintu. He was in Cochin working as a school, but immediately after my marriage, she resigned and she joined, and then we invested in a business, a franchisee business of a courier company called Professional Couriers. So she was managing in Trivandrum some branches. And we ran that business for 20 years. Wow. And now my two children, two boys, elder one is Anand, both of them are chartered accountants. Elder one is a chartered accountant, qualified chartered accountant. He's working with Ernst & Young in Bombay. He's in our business. He's media entertainment and consultancy. Wow. So he's a senior consultant in media entertainment. The younger one is 26. He's as old as Toonz. He was born when we started. Wow. So he's a chartered accountant. He works with Cognizant in Bangalore.
No. That
I definitely wanted one of my children to be a doctor.
Okay.
It was more for a social and kind of reason. No, and I've not told them anything. But both of them decided they wanted to go this way. But I was very proud. I'm very proud because it's like he said, it is not easy to get qualified and all that. Luckily, they qualified and they're doing well.
Yeah. How do you balance your family, because you're in a very very hectic stress kind of? How do you sort of?
Listen. I think there is definitely a sacrifice. If when you really run a large enterprise where 400, 500 people and globally around 1,000 people are trusting you as a leader, and you are responsible for paying them. It's a big responsibility. It is, in your family you are taking responsibility of 4 or 5 people, but here you are taking responsibility of 400 family in Trivandrum, around 1,000 people worldwide. That means around 4,000 people. Even if you assume that 4 people in a family, it is 4,000 people responsibility.
Yeah.
It's quite a large responsibility. So as a result, of course, your time availability with your family is impacted. In fact, my biggest regret at this point in time is I lost a lot of time of my kids growing up, right? Because that's the time we started the company and the company was growing and all that. And that time will never come up.
Yeah.
Today, I have a lot of time, but my kids don't have time, to spend with me, right? But when they had time, I had no time.
Yeah.
So, but having said that, I think I have spent quality time with them wherever possible, whenever possible. I spend time with them, and I'm also proud that we were able to really, and huge thanks to my wife, to rear them as kids with values, right? We kind of given them a parenting that is not to buy them whatever they wanted, but to make sure that the kids understand what is important in life and what is relationship, what is love, what is value, what is family, all that. And I'm so proud that they are good kids.
Good to hear that.
Yes.
Okay, anything last 1 hour we broadly discuss chedu. Any ending notes you have for the viewers which you want to share?
No, I think my as a concluding piece, my advice to younger entrepreneurs is that you should basically bring in systems at early days, because if you are very small, then it is okay, you can manage everything. But when you scale it up, you need to let go, and you need to really build leaders and systems, right? And because beyond 15-20 people, it'll be very difficult to manage the way you used to manage one-on-one.
Yeah.
So that is where I think, developing talent, developing leaders, and systems and processes will come into play. So if you really develop this at the very early stage, scaling up will be very easier. Okay. Then it is all about, for me, I think it is my advice, and people who have worked with me, they know that my motto is you build trust through excellence.
Yes.
Right? You don't compromise. You don't accept mediocrity. When you really work with people, and as a leader, I always told the people that, okay, I will not tolerate mediocrity. If you need more time, take it. Give me the excellent piece.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you really concentrate on the excellence and the quality part of it, then the opportunities will come and chase you. You don't need to chase opportunities, right? If your product is top class, right? If your relationship, because that create trust, trust with the parents, trust with the broadcasters, trust with the clients, trust with the audience. So that trust, with a foundation on quality and excellence, will never go away. Then you don't need to chase any of these kind of things: money, fame, clients, projects. They will chase you. I think that is my, parting advice.
Yes. Thank you so much for the last one. Yes.
Thank you.
Now it's 2026. When people want to find something, a product, a service, or even a local business, they don't search Google anymore. They ask AI engines like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Perplexity. Instead of keywords, they ask questions. Suggest a reliable brand for baby products. Which is the best restaurant in Kochi right now? What's a good budget phone under 20,000 rupees? AI doesn't show links, it gives direct answers and recommendations. That changes everything. Earlier, businesses optimized for search rankings. Now, they need to be visible inside AI answers. And that's where FSEO comes in. FSEO helps any business, brands, agencies, SaaS, or local stores Get discovered on ChatGPT and other LMs. Because in the AI era, if you're not part of the answer, you don't exist. Check out fseo.ai.